Today's read aloud is What is the Moon Like by Franklin M. Branley and illustrated by True Kelly. The next time you see a big round moon, look for the man in the moon. The dark and light parts make some people think of a mouth, a nose, and two eyes. That is why they say there's a man in the moon. Can you see him? I see there's an eye, there's another eye, there's the nose, and there's a mouth. Other people say there's a rabbit in the moon. It has big ears. You see the rabbit, the ears, the feet? Some people see Jack and Jill and their pail of water. See, Jack and Jill. Maybe a cat sees a mouse in the moon. Do you see the mouse? There's the tail, the nose, the ears, and the feet. Maybe a mouse sees a piece of cheese. Next time you see the moon, look for the man, the rabbit, and Jack and Jill. You may be able to see them if you try real hard. Some people try hard but can't see any of them. If you could see the moon better, it would look like this. The light parts are covered with hills and with holes called craters. Some are many miles across. Others are very small. The holes were made by big rocks that crashed into the moon long ago. The dark parts of the moon are smoother. They are like wide fields. It would take weeks to walk across some of them. They are called the seas of the moon because they are so flat. But there isn't any water in them. 12 men have gone to the moon. Look at the map to see where they landed. They walked on the moon. Some of these astronauts rode in a moon car called a lunar roving vehicle. The astronauts found no air on the moon. Outside their ship, the men wore spacesuits. The air they needed was carried inside the suits. They found small rocks and great big ones. Some were as big as a house. Parts of the moon are flat. In those places, the astronauts could move quite easily. But there are many mountains and hills. Some are smooth and rounded. Some have large, jagged rocks sticking out of them. There are cliffs and deep valleys. The astronauts kept away from them. The astronauts found no water on the surface of the moon. The moon is drier than a desert. They found no living things on the moon, no animals or plants. They also found no fossils of plants or animals that might have lived there long ago. The moon is a dead world. It is lifeless and colorless. It is a drab and dull, just gray and brown moon. However, space satellites have discovered what seems to be water and ice beneath the surface of the moon. The water is not liquid. Most of it is bound together with other chemicals. When people visit the moon, they should be able to separate the water from the other chemicals. Then they will be able to drink the water. The moon has a long day and a long night. There are 2 weeks of daylight on the moon. Then there are 2 weeks of darkness. In daytime, the moon gets very hot. The temperature reaches 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hotter than boiling water. There is no air to protect the moon from the sun. It is very cold in shadowed places behind big rocks, and at night the moon gets icy cold, about 290 degrees below zero. There is no air to hold the heat. Spacesuits kept the astronauts from getting too hot in the daytime and too cold at night or in the shadows. The astronauts liked walking on the moon. They did not weigh very much because gravity on the moon is less than it is on Earth. They felt light. You would too. If you weigh 60 pounds on Earth, you would weigh only 10 pounds on the moon. The gravity on the moon is low. The astronauts could take giant steps. They bounded up and down, but their spacesuits were bulky and awkward. The astronauts had to be careful so they would not fall down. Oh, I could turn the page. Here we go. Oops. If they did fall, it was hard for them to get up because of the clumsy spacesuits, and also because of the moon dust. Much of the moon is covered with fine dust, almost like powder. In many places, the dust is a foot or more deep. When the astronauts walked, their boots made prints in the dust. The moon car had to have wide tires to keep from sinking into it. The dust stuck to their spacesuits, too. The moon changes very little. It's almost the same today as it has been for billions of years. That's partly because nothing grows on the moon. Also, there are no rivers and streams to wear down the hills. And there is no wind to move dust from one place to the other. Earth is always changing. All kinds of plants and animals live here, and they keep changing Earth. Our planet also has water that wears down rocks. We also have wind that blows dust and dirt, moving it from place to place. After the Earth and the Moon were formed, big rocks crashed into them. There was also a lot of volcanoes that spouted dust and ash. They spread hot liquid rock or lava over parts of Earth and the Moon. On Earth, much of the lava has been worn away. It is still changing on the Moon. Smaller rocks still crash into the Moon. They also crash into Earth, but not very often. On Earth, our daytime is bright and blue. That's because water droplets, dust particles, and molecules in the air are lighted by the sun. There is no air on the Moon, no dust, water droplets, or molecules in the sky. There is nothing in the sky to be lighted, so it is always black. From the Moon, people can see the stars at night, just as we can from Earth. But they can see the stars in daytime, too. They can see stars in the black sky when the sun is shining. When the astronauts started for home, they could see the Moon just below them. They could see Earth far in the distance. Someday, astronauts will probably go to the Moon again. Once more, they will explore it. They may put up buildings on the Moon and live inside them. They may start a moon colony. Who knows? Someday, you may work in a moon colony. You may be a moon explorer. Then you will see for yourself what the Moon is like. All right, and that's the end of our story. We read this book today because we are going to be learning a lot about what the surface of the Moon is like compared to the surface of the Earth today. So now you have a little bit of background knowledge to help you out when we start our science lesson.